Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hi, welcome back to the course Elements of Literature and Creative Communication. This is the 5th class or the last class of the first week. It's been a wonderful experience interacting with all of you. I'm sure you reciprocate the sentiment. Here during these 4 lectures, we have had some interesting discussion on literature, what is literature, the origin of literature, and how literature enhances our personality, our perspective towards life, how it enriches our life, how it fosters interconnectedness, so various other concepts. We have done that through some lovely and exciting fables and short stories. This class will be slightly different. In fact, for the first time, I am going to introduce a little more exciting feature than the short story. You might ask me, what is more exciting than short story? Well, you will wait and watch. We are going to introduce poetry, something remarkable, something beautiful, and I am sure you will enjoy these lines of poems all the more, or as well as you have enjoyed the short stories. This week, being the final lecture of the week, this is also going to be different in a slightly different way, because so far you have heard me speak on literature, different aspects of literature, different elements of literature, and interconnections that exist across texts. We have also learned some interesting jargons, form, content, intertextuality. Now, having heard me so extensively, well, a time has come where I must also listen to you. So, this class is all about how some of our learners, having heard these lectures, how do they wish to respond to the ideas of literature, or what is their experience of literature, having read various literary pieces, how do they wish to respond to literature. Let us explore all these things. So, in other words, it is the feedback time, and this is the time where I speak a bit less and you speak a bit more. Are we ready to listen to some of our young learners interacting with us on literature and how it affects them? Let us go and see what they have got to say. Here, before I ask the young learners to express their experiences with literature, I am going to ask some generic questions concerning literature, some general questions concerning literature. So, they could pick, you could pick any one of them and answer, or you want to club all these things and answer, that is up to you. I leave that discretion to you. I am going to raise some important questions, some general questions, see how you wish to answer them. The first is, as a student and a reader, of course, all of us are students. Remember, a teacher is also a student. So, as a reader, how would you define literature? What is your understanding of literature? Or you wish to comment on how literature has touched your life? You are free to speak on that. Or you wish to speak on, what has literature done to you apart from the joy of reading? Why else do you read literature? Why do you read literature apart from, of course, the obvious joy of reading? What are the other reasons? This is a very important question. I had touched upon this in one of our earlier classes. We are living in a utilitarian world where everything must have certain benefits. In the absence of that, we don't touch upon it. That is a sad state of affair. Nevertheless, it is true. So, in the context of utilitarian world in which we live and the consumerist culture, what value does literature add to us, or why should we invest in literature, or why should we be invested in literature? Both have certain different shades of meaning. Why should we invest in literature, or why should we be invested in literature? See if you can answer either of them or both of them depending on your convenience. And finally, what would you lose if you are disconnected from literature? Is there anything that you are going to lose at all? Is it going to depreciate something in your life? Please reflect on these questions, and as I said, you can either answer them individually or club all these questions and respond to the spirit of these questions. I leave that option to you. Now is your time. I am really excited about this part because so far you have heard me, and now you give me the opportunity to listen to you. Therefore, it's really exciting. And what I do, of course, as any learner should do, when you are speaking, I'll take down the notes so that I understand you correctly. I don't miss out some important components of what you speak, and based on that, based on what you have said, I'll respond to that. I hope it's okay with you. You could now go ahead and speak on your understanding of literature, Lakshmi, but before that, you may please introduce yourself and then start speaking on literature, how it touches you, or what is your relationship with literature, things like that. Okay? Yeah, it's your time now.
Hi, I'm Lakshmi, a research student at the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Kharagpur. As I recollect my initial tryst with literature through the lullabies sung to me by my mother, or through the bedtime stories that I was so fond of, or through folk songs and ballads which would create powerful visuals in my mind, till my most recent engagements with literature, listening to Tom Bedlam's reading of Pablo Neruda's poetry in translation, which was found from a YouTube repository and shared to me by my friend via WhatsApp. As I think about all these, I realize that literature is that which touches me. It moves me. It takes me beyond the narrow domestic walls, as Rabindranath Tagore would put it, and help me envision a better world. There is this beautiful phrase by Marianne Moore, which I always remember: imaginary gardens with real toads in them. Literature is that for me. It is the bridge between what is there and what is possible, while also being a significant value addition to life, something that makes life worth living. More importantly, literature is also that place where every one of us, irrespective of who we are, will be able to belong. Literature assures us that all of us matter. We are not alone. Thank you.
That's really brilliant, Lakshmi. I'm really impressed with how you began. In fact, if I have summarized you correctly, and it's also for all of us, she begins with the folk origins of literature, because all of us know that, right? Literature, when it began, it always began as an oral medium, not as a written medium. So gradually it became a written word, but earlier all our folk tales, remember all the grandmother's tales that we've heard, all the nursery rhymes, most of them, they are highly folkish, so she begins with the folk elements of literature, and very brilliantly she talks about, Rabindranath Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore's, how we are going to, in fact, what she began, I'm going to touch upon that poem, and later we can have a discussion of Tagore's poem, and she begins with Marianne Moore's interesting poem. In fact, the poem is called Poetry. The title of the poem is Poetry, where she talks of poetry's ability to forge an alliance with reality, because poetry is imaginative. The power of imagination to connect with reality and alter reality for the better. That's a remarkable, invocation of Marianne Moore. I found it really very interesting. and how literature also acts as bridge between the world of imagination and and reality. These are some important concepts, but at the core, as she says, the objective of literature, if at all it has any one objective, is to make us a universal being. Otherwise, we are confined to narrow fragments, and within those confines we think we are this, we are that. So the true purpose of literature is to make us universal beings, to take us out of those narrow confines that limit our understanding, limit our perception, and limit our imagination, and make us truly Vishwamanava, the universal being. And of course, it's in this context we can also recall what the French writer Albert Camus said, the purpose of literature is to take us onto a journey from being to becoming. That's also the existential philosophy talks about this movement, the movement of a being, from being to becoming. It entails a journey, how literature entails a journey, Lakshmi has given us an extraordinary opportunity to revisit one of the brightest and iconoclastic poems by Rabindranath Tagore, where the mind is without fear. We have heard of every nation having its own anthem. These are called national anthems, right? Of course, Tagore himself has authored national anthems for 2 countries, probably the only poet who has had a distinct honor of having written anthems, national anthems for 2 different countries. If there is one anthem, or if there could be one anthem that is for the entire globe, global anthem, if we can call a global anthem, this poem qualifies to be the best candidate for that, where the mind is without fear. Let me read this out. Of course, these lines are quite evident and they are highly charged. Every time you read those lines, they wake you up from all the slumbers that have inhabited, that have created shackles, that have put us in shackles, that are capable of freeing us from all the chains. Let's read these immortal lines. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. This can be the anthem for the entire humanity, a remarkable and a soulful prayer, a soulful prayer. I just wish if there are powers above, let them bless the entire humanity so that, not just the countrymen that Tagore wishes, the entire people of the whole globe, wake up in that kind of country, in that kind of place. Remarkable line. Now let's listen to some other learner. She too is eager to make her points on literature and what literature has done to her, her equations, her chemistry with literature. Let's go and listen to Bidisha, another bright and promising young research scholar of IIT Kharagpur. Good, here we have Bidisha, and whatever she has got to say, it would be equally rewarding, I hope, and I'll also take down what she says so that we can have an interesting discussion on that. Bidisha, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Bidisha, a PhD student at the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Kharagpur. Literature for me is a place where I come to find language at its most beautiful, thoughtful and ingenious. It is where I come to take rest from the mundane rhythm of life, and yet in the act I come closer to life. I get so much more than a greater sensibility for language from literature. It allows me to exercise my emotional and rational apparatus in a simulated environment. Therefore, although the experiences feel vivid, it is a safe space. Literature allows me to feel more attuned to people around me, because in the act of reading, I am eager to put myself in others' shoes, and I feel more receptive. There is a great potential for neural revision. There is a great possibility for change of learned behavioral patterns and thought patterns. In that sense, literature is no less than a form of therapy. Literature helps me to look at something from multiple perspectives, beyond the binary shades of black and white. Literature helps me to read something critically. It helps me to look at something critically, whether it's a written or a spoken discourse. Literature helps me to read between the lines and also against the grains. But even more than all of these, literature offers me support and comfort when I don't get that from people in my immediate surroundings, because something might be contrary to their value system. Therefore, it won't be an exaggeration to say that literature is my alter family. Thank you.
That's really brilliant. I enjoyed listening to you, Bidisha. Let's have a discussion on what she says, because she raises very many important points, and for all our benefit, I've just jotted it down. When she says language at its most delicate and ingenious, what she is referring to, probably, if I understand her correctly, is that, literature for language, acts like, it's like a Manasa Gangotri. For what Manasa Gangotri is for the river Ganga, literature is for the river called language, because there it is pristine, it is at its best, the originary, something like that. And she highlights on the transformative ability of literature, the ability of literature to touch us and change us from within. This change, more than a transformation, it's a kind of a metamorphosis. We know the story, right? The metamorphosis is, an altogether a complete thing. Transformation taken to a level of perfection, change taken to the level of perfection. Metamorphosis is that. So literature has the ability to transform us from within, so that we become evolved beings, refined creatures, an extraordinary thing. And in the process, she talks about a very interesting stuff. She says that literature has the potential to create alter families, like you have alter egos, alter personalities. It has the capacity to create alter families, isn't it? Because when you read a work of art or when you watch a movie, as long as you are doing that, you become a part of that family. That's why, you will have seen many people crying when they are watching a sorrowful scene, or when they are laughing when people there are enjoying. Why does it happen? Because it automatically creates networks between what you see there with what you have, or what you are. So she talks about the potential of literature to create alter families. This is a remarkable trait. This is a remarkable trait. I have some interesting poems. I have some interesting lines that almost echo what Bidisha says. Let's look at these lines and discuss them in a little more detailed manner, right? What I have done here, after having listened to each of them, I discussed what they said about literature. I delineated their equations with literature and why they study literature and what kind of benefits they have had with literature. And now what I have done, or what I am planning to do with you, is take up a couple of some interesting poems, that better reflect the sentiments of what our young learners have just spoken, in order to just emphasize on what they have said, or illustrate, to put it differently, to illustrate what they said. I have taken up a couple of poems. Let's say, for instance, these poems have the potential to enhance empathy, because you've heard one or two of our speakers developing on the concept of empathy, and how there was a speaker who talked of how literature can create alter reality, like alter realities, alter families. There was another learner who highlighted on how literature can act as an antidote to harsh realities. So these poems here reflect those sentiments, they illustrate those sentiments in a more poetic and aesthetic manner. That's why let me discuss these poems with you. Here is a brilliant poem by Rumi called The Guest House. It's oft quoted and often recited. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. Please pay attention to this. As I said, if you don't get it in the single reading, no problem, but you can read it again and then you will be able to get it. But the context is simple. Look at this human being, look at human being as a kind of a guest house. Now the comparison is similar, a human being is compared to guest house. Now the rest of the poem becomes evident to you. Why is the poet calling human being or comparing human being to a guest house? What are the similarities? What are the differences? Let's continue reading the poem. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Like guests enter the guest room, guest house, welcome all of them. They are just like guests to us. What are the guests? Joy, depression, meanness, whatever comes to our life, whatever moment, fleeting emotions, whatever they are, be it joy, be it sorrow, treat them just like guests, because like guests leave after a couple of days, they too leave. Once we realize this profound truth, then our understanding of joy, our understanding of sorrow, it changes, and our response to these things also change. Therefore, treat them like a guest, because they are going to leave. After having completed their stay, they leave. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. Treat them honorably, though you know that they are here to rob you, or you'll be wiped off your feet, you'll be wiped away, you'll be robbed off. Treat them nobly, treat them honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight, because when the space is cleared, you will be able to bring new furniture, right? So treat it just like that. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Just invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. What an extraordinary poem, If we have understood the spirit behind this poem, probably our entire perspective towards life, relationships, our responses to sorrows, our responses to joys, it varies. If we can consider hardship that comes our way, most of us, we keep suffering from some problem or the other, some hardship or the other. if we can treat this hardship also as a guest and consider it as a kind, because I am reminded of what some of the poets says, treat suffering as a calling card from God. It's like a visitation. If suffering has visited you, if hardship has come by you, then it means it's a sure shot that you have received a visiting card by God. That means God is about to visit you very shortly. Such a soothing idea, right? If we can get hold of these lines at our weakest moments, at our most depressing moments, then probably the way we respond to these emotions, negative, dark emotions, it changes. We still repose faith in life. That's why such extraordinary, these are companions for life. These lines can be companions for life. Now look at another short interesting poem by Khalil Gibran. He's a Lebanese American poet. In fact, The Prophet, these are taken from his collection of poems called The Prophet. It's one of the most sold out books, one of the most popular, widely read poetry books. Parents are like a bow and children like arrows. The more the bow bends and stretches, the farther the arrow flies. I fly not because I am special, but because they stretched for me. Now, if you can understand this in a different context, again, when there is a hardship that comes by, or when we are not happy, when we are suffering, when there is pain, it's like, it's bending us. So when we feel that we are, there is a lot of pressure on us, let's remember, the more pressure there is on the bow, the more pressure you create on the bow, the farther the arrow goes, right? So probably the pressure that we have right now, we may feel it's unbearable, but remember, the more such pressures are there on our life, probably we fly quite far ahead. Maybe they have come here for a purpose, to push us, to propel us towards nobler goals or higher goals. So if we can treat these problems in this light, in the light that they are here to push us to get the better out of us, probably we do not suffer so much. Our suffering lessens to a certain extent. I have Iman here with me, who is bubbling with energy and enthusiasm to share his connections, his equations with literature. Let's listen to him. Probably let's listen to other young learners, and let's listen to what they've got to say. Probably after listening to all of them, we can jot down the important points they say and then have a discussion, a comprehensive discussion on what they say. All right. Yeah, Iman, please go ahead. We are ready for you. And Iman is again a bright and a dedicated research student in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. I am equally enthusiastic to listen to him. Okay, let's go and listen to what he's got to say.
Hello everyone, my name is Iman and I am a research scholar at the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at IIT Kharagpur. Literature for me has played an extremely crucial and profoundly transformative role in turning me into the person that I have become today. It has made me far more empathetic, it has made me a far more confident person, and most importantly, it has taught me to look at and consider multiple perspectives when dealing with certain situations. Literature, extraordinarily, it opens this door to a different dimension altogether, through which we can experience a wide range of emotions and feelings and amazing literary characters. And without these extraordinary experiences through literature, our life would be one-dimensional and it would be restricted to the narrow confines of our domestic life, of the chance circumstances of our birth. with reading literature, it forces us to think beyond these narrow confines, think beyond our domestic walls. It forces us to go beyond our comfort zone, to think about people with different circumstances of life. It forces us to experience beyond our comfort zone, that is, and thanks to all these experiences, we are far more empathetic. It teaches us empathy. And most importantly, literature, it validates your feelings. It shows us that all the crises that we face, all the problems that we have, our feelings, our emotions, although they are unique, but at the same time they are experienced by people across centuries, across continents, across cultures. And this validation is something that I feel is very crucial to me and very crucial to whoever reads and appreciates literature. And for that, I will always be extremely grateful to literature and the impact that it has had on my life. Thank you.
Okay, that's brilliant. I really enjoyed listening to you. In a span of a couple of minutes that he speaks, he uses the word empathy. If you have noticed, he invokes the word empathy at least 4 to 5 times. That's a very important component, and that's an important achievement of literature, because it creates that element of empathy, or if it enhances that component of empathy in all of us. I'm really glad to see some of these young learners almost echoing some of the similar sentiments that we have discussed in the previous classes. And coming back to empathy, empathy is a real game changer, especially in the contemporary world. Let's remember what Gandhi says, an eye for an eye. Where would it leave us? It would leave us, in a world full of blind people, or bruised people, or hurt people. So literature has the capacity to create empathy in us. That's the real game changer, and that's an antidote to the world that is conflict ridden. The world that we live in is conflict ridden, be it at the national levels or at the regional levels or even at the individual levels. Conflicts is what marks, conflict is what identifies, conflict is what, what is there, what is prevalent, right? So in order to overcome that, probably empathy is what we require. That's the reason why he aptly highlights on the empathy creating value of literature. And he also discusses how literature almost kicks us out of our comfort zones, because when we are in comfort zones, that makes us lazy and unproductive, that makes us take things for granted, right? When literature unsettles us, it unsettles us because it makes us take stock of new things. It offers us new lenses through which we can look at the world, right? So it offers us new perspectives. That's why he also talks about literature offering new perspectives. And more than that, it validates our feelings, because when you are in the company of characters that freely express what they feel, what happens is it validates our own emotions, because remember, we are emotional beings. Human beings are emotional beings. Of course, we are also, reason oriented beings, that's true, but more than reason, what appeals to us is our emotions, is our feelings. So literature acts as a kind of a validation of all those feelings. So that's something very remarkable. Of course, later, after listening to another enthusiastic participant, we are going to discuss some of these concepts in the context of some brilliant lines by renowned poets such as Rumi, Khalil Gibran and others. Let's go and listen to what other learners have got to speak. We have Rifat here with us. She is an avid reader. She likes poetry. Let's go and listen to why she reads poetry, or why she connects with literature, what is the gain, what is the loss. Let's go and listen to her. All right? Okay. Yeah. Rifat, again, while you are speaking, I will be taking down the notes, and later I will be discussing some of your important concepts, some of the concepts that you share with me with my other learners. All right? Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello, I am Rifat, a research scholar at the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Kharagpur. The oft quoted meaning of literature is anything that is written. However, literature is more than that. Given that the earliest instances of literature were not scripted but existed orally, speaks for itself. The meaning and definition of literature has changed and is still changing with the ages. There can be no the one definition of literature since it is subjective. Personally, literature is a place of sojourn, an escape from reality. Yet much more than that, because literature also familiarizes us with the harshest realities which are not otherwise presented before us. Literature employs the power and art of language in order to put forward a plethora of human emotions and experiences in the finest manner. That it sways us, it moves us. It helps us step into the shoes of different characters and lead 1,000 lives. Poetry presents the trees, the azure sky, birds, and other elements of nature in an aesthetic, prepossessing, and arresting manner, that we fall in love with nature all over again. And it also revitalizes our soul. It makes us value things. In times of distress and despair, it gives us hope and a reason to believe and smile. However, it does not only create a cocoon and keeps us away from the realities or the unpleasant realities, and as it acquaints us with the unnerving narratives of the concomitant issues. Apart from these, who can deny the blessings and power of literature? The highly charged lines that Kazi Nazrul Islam wrote in Kandari Hushiyar. গমগিরি কান্তর মরুদুস্তর পারাবার লঙ্ঘিতে হবে রাত্রি নিশীথে যাত্রীরা হুঁশিয়ার দুলিতেছে তরি ফুলিতেছে জল ভুলিতেছে মাঝি পথ ছিড়িয়াছে পাল কে ধরিবে হাল আছে কার হিম্মত কে আছো জওয়ান হও আগোয়ান হাঁকিছে ভবিষ্যৎ এ তুফান ভারী দিতে হবে পারি নিতে হবে তরি পার The impassable mountains, boundless deserts, monstrous oceans must pass through the dark night. Travelers, be aware. The boat trembles, the water swells, the boatman loses his way. The sail is torn, who will take hold? Who has the courage? Awake, O youth, the future beckons. The paroxysmal storms must be overcome, and the boat must be taken ashore. These lines added much to the needed zeal and vigor of the Bengalis during the national uprising, and countless other literary works have done the same. It makes us realize our rights. It makes us understand ourselves as well as others better. It makes us empathize with people. Literature brings out the best version of ourselves and makes us a better human being. Thank you.
What a brilliant and charged rendition of the poet laureate of Bangla. That's really very impressive. Kazi Nazrul Islam's lines, almost, they're coming alive. Poetry always has the capacity to add life to the dead lines, because only when you recite a poem will it come out alive. So she has really brought the poem out alive. That's a remarkable thing. Good, I'm very impressed. Thank you, Rifat. Again, Rifat, for all our benefit, if I can sum up what she says, she begins with oral origins of literature, like some of our other learners have already pointed out. More than this, she says, it's a place of sojourn, it's a place of escape. Remember, most of the times when reality becomes harsh, we use the term biting reality, right? When the reality becomes dark and harsh and biting, then we need a place to escape. We need a place to escape, so that we can come back. It's not an escapist method. What I am saying is you need a place of, peace, solitude. So literature provides that place of sojourn, a kind of a stay, a temporary stay. And it acts as an antidote to the harsh realities of this world. That's a wonderful thing. More than that, she talks about literature's ability to connect us with nature, because like literature, or more than literature, nature has the ability to nurture our soul in extraordinary ways. Please remember, it's only recently that we have disconnected ourselves from nature, and it's a great loss. We don't even realize the extent to which the extent of damage it has done. Only when we learn to reconnect with nature that we really gain something meaningful, because nature has always acted as an anchor to our existence, anchor to our self. Okay, so she talks about the literature's ability to connect us back with nature, and how that revitalizes us, revitalizes us. Please remember, writers in that sense, I am reminded of this, that writers can be called engineers of soul. Writers can be called engineers of soul. Why? Because they can shape it to the extent they want, or in the way they want it. They are called the engineers of our soul. And literature, has the ability to create some sort of surgical interventions in our life, if we can borrow a popular phrase, a phrase that's been made popular over the couple of years, surgical interventions, but we are taking it out of the context and using it for literature and poetry. Literature has the capacity for these kind of surgical interventions in our life and transforming us for the better. We are going to take up all these things in the context of some brilliant lines by some remarkable poets. Let's go through them, let's go through these lines, and of course we can hear certain echoes, certain voices. Of course, we discussed intertextuality, right? See if you can listen to certain other literary voices speaking through these lines. All right, let's go and check out these brilliant. Some more lovely lines. In fact, these lines are just arranged in some random order, again random order. That's an interesting way to put things, it's an interesting construct, a random order. Look at this poem. Trees are poems the earth writes upon the sky. We fell them down and turn them into paper that we may record our emptiness. The poem simultaneously talks of how nature is a kind of a song that the earth has sung for itself, and how by destroying nature, how we are creating emptiness, how we are creating emptiness. A beautiful poem, maybe when we make these poems, when we popularize these poems, probably it creates a kind of an awareness such that we may, these problems of deforestation, the problem of insensitivity towards nature, we can cure our society of these maladies when we popularize these lines. The earth delights to feel your bare feet, and the winds long to play with your hair. Here is another very short poem that talks of how nature is eager to be with us, the companionship that nature wants to foster with us. If we can, that's what I've been saying. Most of our poets, they realize this. Most of the sensible beings realize what kind of an anchor nature provides in life. That's the reason why we need to take care of nature, not to preserve nature for the sake of nature, but to preserve it for our sake, because the benefits are not just in terms of these are not just economic benefits, these are not just fiscal benefits. The benefits are immense. The value that they add to our life, the value that they add to our soul, that's and spirit, that's immense, huge, right? So these are some things that we can keep in mind. And since I have mentioned these poets, be it Rumi, Khalil Gibran, or Lao, or even Bhagavad Gita, these poems or these literary pieces have an extraordinary ability to inspire us. So if possible, let's pick up any of these books and read at least a few pages. That's not an impossible task, right? I don't think I'm asking too much of you if I ask you to read at least a couple of pages of any of these poets that you like. Now, before we leave, let's quickly do a kind of a recapitalize what we did this entire week. We began the entire first week lectures, the strings of lectures were more introductory in nature. They introduced literature, relevance of literature. More than that, we tried locating literature in our lives, and our lives in literature. It's both, both are correct. We located literature in our lives. We also located ourselves in literature. So the first lecture was more of an introduction. We began with a short story, and then we introduced literature. We briefly defined it. We continued that discussion in the next class, and along with defining literature in some remarkable lines, we also understood the relevance of literature, how literature is relevant in our life, in our society. And in the third class, we went on to discuss the multidimensional benefits of engaging with literature. And all this we did taking a couple of interesting parables, fables, folk tales, short stories. And in the fourth class, we discussed how to engage with literature. Is there any systematic way to engage with literature? And how do we appreciate literature? Because to read it like a layperson is one thing. Of course, it has its own benefits, but in the process, how to hone our skills in reading literature so that we can optimize our exposure to literature and the benefits of literature. We discussed that. And in the last class, of course, we listened to literature from the perspective of our young learners. I'm sure all these discussions will have helped you understand your own equations with literature. And with these things, we are ending the first week. The next week, we begin with a new topic. Until then, bye-bye. See you in the next class next week.